I never really understood emotions that well. I'd like talk to people and I would understand why they got mad or why they got sad. And this really it's really bothered me until like I started to grow up and I started getting into science. And when I just did get into science, I realized that like most things that people have, it's rooted in biology, you know. So as a scientist, you start looking into things. And what I started to realize is that when I started looking at emotions from a biological standpoint rather than an emotional standpoint, or like a sociological standpoint or like a psychological standpoint, I started to understand that okay, so this is why people do things. And it allowed me to better grasp how people interact. And the more I started to learn about the biology behind emotions, the better I got at talking to people. So that's kind of what this video is about. It's just explanation on why humans have emotions, so that, if any of you guys out there are having any trouble understanding why emotions exist, you can, you know, maybe learn from this. I'm gonna talk about the basic six emotions first, because every other emotion is like a sub family of that, or like a combination of two. But the main six fundamental are happiness, sadness, fear, anger, surprise, and disgust. I want to start with fear. The thing with fear is that it's one of our most oldest emotions. It's it triggers a flight or fight response. It causes us to have a rapid surge in adrenaline, increased heart rate, and blood flow is redirected to the muscles and parts of the body. This would help us escape from any organisms that was trying to hurt us, or anything that, anything that needed us to get away from it, you know? So I think it's one of the more intuitive ones to understand, because fear is like so innate as humans. The reason why we feel fear is because if there's something uh over there that's gonna kill me, I don't want to go over there. I want to get away from it. And so the fastest way to do that is by running away or fighting it. So to get that surge of energy to stave off whatever's trying to harm you is what fear is. Anger. Now, anger is interesting because the thing with anger is that it prepares the body for confrontation. So whereas fear is fight or flight, anger is just fight. Like you like a head first, you want to like talk to someone, or you're gonna want to face the problem. You know, it's the same thing with fear. It's very similar, where it causes increased heart rate, blood pressure, energy mobilization, and it's more towards the biological necessity to to survive, essentially. I mean, much like anything, but it to survive in that to gain something. You've either been slighted, or I'd like to think about it as something like like fairness. Um for example, it's needed to defend resources, territory, offspring, social status, deter others from exploiting or harming you, yada yada yada. But then, like when you get into the nitty gritty of it, it's something that you get when when something's not fair towards you, when survival isn't fair towards you. If there's someone else who has something that you need, you would feel jealousy, or you feel anger, and that anger would give you enough energy to go get that thing. Like sometimes people are motivated by spite. It's because they want something and that need, and that extra energy comes from anger. It's uh unfairness, like I mentioned before, plays a large part in anger, because um let's say like you go to the club with your girl and someone else is talking to your girl. The anger that you get is enough to push away that guy, because you don't want him jeopardizing your chances of having your mate, which is your girl, to leave you for him, because the top priority is reproduction, and you need her to reproduce. So it's like a boost of energy to, it's like a get shit done emotion, you know? Disgust. Disgust is pretty straightforward. It is a biological reaction for you to avoid pathogens. It's we usually get disgust when we see something, well, gross. The gross emotion we get is so that we avoid contact with anything that might give us diseases, right? Toxic food, rot, bodily fluids, feces, stuff like that. And the interesting thing is that our facial expressions are also very in line with it. Because when you have rotting flesh in front of you, like right here, the first thing is like that, or like, and that's because you reduce your nose and your eyes and you look away as you're decreasing your exposure to the object. So you have less pathogens come inside your body and less sensory intake. Uh, Discussed later, like as humanity progressed, it evolved into a behavioral immune system, you know. This also triggers around disease vectors, like, so it's not just actually like something that could get you sick, but something that has something that could get you sick, which is disease vectors like rats, bugs, what else we got, poor people, things like that, you know. Like that's you try and like stay away from those things. Sadness is it's also pretty straightforward. The thing with sadness is it is a biological punishment response for when you did something you weren't supposed to. As living beings, we have a couple rules to existing, you know. We have you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to fuck, you need to do a lot of things, right? And when you don't do these things or you fail to do these things, you feel sad. That's why we often feel really sad when we lose a lover, or when we or when we lose a child, because those are, because the whole point of being alive is to reproduce and to have children and to continue the length of your species, the progress of your species. But then if anything were to jeopardize that, you failed. That's why you didn't do it. And this is different from anger in that having extra energy won't solve this. Because you're angry, being angry won't bring your dead child or dead. So all you can do is be sad, and you can sorrow and feel that pain. But but something interesting about sadness is that we have a physical response to sadness. We cry, we have low energy, and this is because when we have that, it capitalizes on the human social concept of empathy, and that it lets us come together and support you. Because when you see someone who's crying, your first instinct is to go there and help them, sort them out. Because as a community, you're able to progress better, even if you're when you're sad. So that it's like a biological error message, you know. If you're feeling sadness, it means you have done something wrong for the survival of your species, and it discourages further activities. Although visible sadness does garner support from everyone else, or from your community at least. Happiness. Happiness is the exact opposite of sadness, where it's like a reward mechanism for when you do something that's biologically necessary. It's a release of dopamine and serotonin when we do something that's like food, safety, social bonding, reproduction, anything like that, and it reinforces this behavior for us to like repeating. It's like stuff that makes us happy. It's what helped our ancestors survive and reproduce, and essentially makes experiences worth repeating. You know, that's why we get addicted to things like eating and hanging out with girls, or like going to the club. You know, it's um it's this repetitive behavior that makes you happy. Um, we're happy for a reason. Not everything that makes us happy is bad. Everything that makes us happy for a reason. It's because it's what cavemen needed to do. But it's like it's so it's so easily found nowadays that it's like there's no struggle anymore. You have to actually work for it. So we feel that it's a bad thing. You know, it also happiness also promotes social bonding and cooperation, and it also makes sure that shared positive emotions within the group gets tied. You know, you could have people that hate you, and people don't like you at all. But then you go to like a party with them once, and suddenly you're best friends. You know, it's like happiness is Mother Nature telling us that good job, keep doing it, keep it up. You know, surprise. Surprise is a short life. Short, it's the shortest lived of the basic emotions, you know. It's essentially it's the attention reset triggered by external stimuli. Biologically, it interrupts ongoing, like everything that's going on right now, like behavior, cognition, and redirects attention to the surrounding area, to unexpected stimuli. So it's basically like it allows you to process everything, to stop everything and just process like what's going on right now. That's why when you get surprised, your eyes widen and your eyebrows go up. It's to like see everything that's going on. It's to quickly assess the situation and to know if it's an opportunity, if it's a threat, or if it's irrelevant. You know, it's just orienting your responses for the current sudden scenario. When I started the video, I said that I was only going to focus on the six emotions. That's because those are the main emotions that we're talking. Everything else is kind of like a subfamily of emotions. Love is just happiness in finding a mate. Guilt is just sad for having done something that's not socially acceptable or like is harming you. Anxiety is fear of not being accepted by society. Loathing is disgust for a person. Shock is like fear and surprise mixed together. So we have our main emotions like stated already. Everything else underneath that is just it's just a like a branching off or like a hybrid of everything else that I've all the emotions that I've just mentioned. After I read about these, I started reading and started understanding about these emotions. I realized that a lot of things that we feel right now are vestigial. A lot of the pain we feel from emotions is that they don't they're not important to us. It doesn't matter to us as a modern human being. It's because they're a lot like wisdom teeth. They helped humans back in the day when we had to fight for survival, but since our quality of life has improved so much that we don't really need it anymore. Like here are a couple. Discuss towards outer groups. As we were living as tribes, the same behavioral immune system that evolved to avoid pathogens also gets triggered by unfamiliar people, culture, and physical differences, right? It helped ancestral people to like avoid people of unfamiliar environments because you don't know if you're in a tribe and some new guy is coming in and he's like, you know, he's a different skin color, it would be wise to avoid him because you don't know where he's been, you don't know what he does, you don't know how their culture affects you. But now we feel the same things, but in modern societies, we still feel that as a form of xenophobia. But then it's not really applicable because we're all human. It doesn't matter. Like our cultures aren't that different. You don't have to be afraid that he might do something to you just because his race is different. You know, at the end of the day, we're all just human. And something else similar to that is excess fear from non-modern threats. Like people are still afraid of snakes and spiders, and that's more of a vestigial, like arachnophobia is more of a vestigial fear of what spiders would have done back in the day. But now you don't really have to be afraid of spiders. Like, um, what are they called? Irrational fears. Irrational fears are vestigial. They're what cavemen had back in the day, you know, to to safeguard themselves from a type of from a type of danger. But now it doesn't really matter. You don't have to be afraid of snakes. You don't have to be afraid of spiders. It doesn't really affect us in a day to day anymore. Um, jealousy is one because intense positive jealousy is thought to have evolved to prevent male poaching and to ensure positive paternity. Like you don't want back in the day, you don't want your man to be stolen. You want to have a strong man to support for you and your children. But in modern relationships, the same intensity often just causes controlling behavior and relationship damage without like the original payoff. Because like if you're a woman and you can feel if you think that your man is leaving you for someone else, back in the day, back whenever time I say back in the day, I mean like caveman times, you couldn't survive anymore. You would die. It like you because you wouldn't have a strong, independent man to save you from the winter and to provide for you. But now you don't need that. You women can be independent. You could date, and then you could date like a complete bum and still be fine. But then the jealousy that's in us, it's still very deep rooted. Something else that's affects us in our modern day-to-day life, but it's still very vestigial, is excessive stress anxiety response to social rejections. Social exclusion was once a death sentence. If you're expelled from the tribe, there's no food, no protection, no mates, and you're gonna die alone. But the intensity of modern anxiety over things like public speaking, online criticism, and minor social, slights, it's often mismatched to be it's often the fear that we feel is mismatched from the effects that actually has. And so this threat response system isn't calibrated properly to what we actually feel. Because anxiety is such a big problem nowadays. It's because we have a fear of belonging. We need to belong. But then our emotions often get ahead of us. So you can either do one of two things. You can either, for this anxiety, you can either not care about society at all, and you could just be a hermit, which you can still survive as. You don't need human connection. Back in the day, you could have, but now you don't really need it. It's not healthy, but you could still do it. Or you could just understand that all these, you will never be like socially excluded. Regardless of what you do, you will always be enough for society. It doesn't matter if you're like a furry, you will always belong, regardless of where you are. You will always have your community, so you don't have to feel that anxiety of who you are. Something else is contempt. Some researchers argue that contempt evolved to enforce social hierarchies and cooperative norms in small tribal groups, but this functions poorly in a modern setting, in in societies with different social structures, because the contempt and hatred that you have for someone isn't really effective. There's no point in having hatred for someone. Oh, excuse me. There's no point in having hatred for someone. Hatred would have helped you back in the day when if someone was proactively like harming the tribe, but now there's nothing. If you're like work if you're at work with someone you hate, you might hate them for like the smallest reason, but the contempt is still there that they are not good for the community. But at the end of the day, as long as they work fine, it's good. Next is awe and fear of natural phenomena. This is similar to the snakes and spiders things, as people who are still afraid of like heights, thunder, lightning. It's our ape brain working, but you don't have to be afraid of it anymore because it's not gonna hurt you.